Now it's time for today's perspective. My guest today is a filmmaker who was lucky enough to capture on camera the build-up and the main event that has been perhaps the most significant in her country for years. Sandra Kogut decided to make a film about the presidential election in Brazil of 2 years ago by following some of the characters closest to it, from office workers to poll inspectors and activists as well, from both sides of the political spectrum. Now, little did she know that the already polarised battle between the far-right's Jair Bolsonaro and the left's Luis Lula da Silva would spill into the violence that it did as Bolsonaro's supporters stormed the National Congress, the Presidential Palace and the Supreme Federal Court in January 2023. You'll remember, of course, to try to overturn that election. Well, before I talk to the filmmaker Sandra Kogut, let's get a little bit of a flavour of the film.
Eu cheguei primeiro. Aí os caras que estavam aqui em frente, aqui é Bolsonaro, porra! Aí eu virei e disse assim, aí, aqui é Lula.
Pela esquerda, André! Pela esquerda, André! Pela esquerda! Confessamos esses pecados como nação brasileira.
A democracia está de volta no Brasil.
Você acha que alguém fez um cálculo secreto e enganou um país inteiro de 200 milhões de pessoas?
Eu não sei que país que eu vivo ou que você está vivendo.
As you can tell, so many emotional moments in the film. Sandra joins us here on set. Sandra's lived and worked here in France, in the US, and of course in Brazil as well. Thanks very much for coming in to talking to us today. First of all, tell us about where the idea came from for the film in the first place. What were you hoping to achieve?
So first, good morning. Thank you for having me. I knew something was going to be very important. We had no idea what was going to happen. We feared every day that there would be a coup d'etat. And I thought it's very important to record this. I sometimes felt sorry for the historians of the future who would have to explain this moment that was so weird and so strange, so hard. And, you know, I felt we were like stuck in an eternal present because the scandal of this week would make us completely forget the one from last week and so on. So I thought it was important to make a film.
And you didn't go about it, did you, by making a documentary? You did it by assembling, if you like, a cast of characters.
So the big challenge of this film was to try to connect to the people from the far right side. And the film started as an impossibility. But I had a genuine curiosity to try to understand, or at least connect, listen to them. And so I decided that I was going to have to invent a way to make this film. And so I started by asking them to make diaries with their phones. So, you know, it was a way of getting into their houses, their minds.
Because presumably, to start with, everyone was saying, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was constantly a problem. And also, I wanted to have the film with characters that were involved in the electoral process because the elections were under attack. So it was important to see from the inside how it works, how it happens. So it wouldn't be just a rhetorical discussion to say the elections were not fraud. We would see it in the film. We would follow.
And there are so many different types of people who are involved in the film, aren't there, from all sorts of different areas building up to the election?
Yes, people in different geography, different ages, different positions. I wanted it to be wide, so we would have a sense. And also people that we don't normally see, because they are in the background, they are on the side. So even the images we see from the coup, from the inauguration, are always different from we used to see on TV.
And how did you actually get people to be able to do that? I mean, as you said, people filming themselves, but a lot of people aren't used to filming themselves, are they? I mean, how did you manage to persuade them and show them how to go about doing this, to film their reactions?
It was the craziest thing I ever did because it was so much work. I had to create a dynamic with them. So I was showing them images, teaching them film, showing, asking how I was gonna work with the images. So it was really a very intense, but that also helped to create a kind of trust.
Yeah.
You know, over time.
And you were able to keep track of it all because you must have had so much material.
Yes, I thought in the beginning, I'm kind of creating an archive of the present. And it's a very rich and very wide material. Of course, the film is just a part of it. But yes, we were really going forward in a kind of a blind way. Yeah.
In the end, of course, it did turn to violence. I mean, we saw some of that towards the end of the trailer there. You had no idea, of course, that would happen to the extent that it happened. But it's incredible, isn't it, in the film, how you were able to film that and film those key moments as well. I mean, some of it you filmed yourself as well, didn't you?
So, you know, the whole time, it took months and months, a whole year. Almost every day, we feared that there would be a coup. And then there was the inauguration. Lula was elected. And then it was 1 week later, it was the first Sunday where I was at home thinking, okay, now I can breathe, and the shooting is over. And then started the coup. You know, it was unbelievable situation. But I'm glad I was able to film it. Yeah. Because the images we were able to make of this moment were kind of unique. They are. Because televisions were not allowed in, so everything was filmed from a distance. And the other images were the cell phones of the Bolsonaro supporters, the far-right people. And these images we have in the film that are film images of that moment, I think nobody else made.
It's going to be a real historical archive, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those films that people will be able to look back at to remember what happened on what was a momentous day in Brazilian politics.
You know, already now, a year later, it's a film that the more time passes, the more layers it gets, because we see with everything we know that happened afterwards, but we also see with the notion that all this is still there. You know, these people are still there, these ideas are still there, and now I have been traveling with the film. And it's unfortunate, but it's true that other countries, it resonates. People recognize in this film things they see at home, in their own countries. Yeah. So I think it's, yes, a historical, but when we say historical, it seems in the future, but already now, you know, it's really moving with history.
Is it something you want to do again? I mean, there's going to be another presidential election in Brazil, isn't there?
I thought of it. I think if I do it again, I'll do it differently, because it was really something such a gigantic project. But yeah.
Well, it's great to see that clip of the film and see the bits of it that we've seen. It's a fascinating film, and thank you very much for coming in and talking to us today. Sandra Kogut who's made that wonderful film, At This Moment in the Nation's Sky. It is called in English. Thanks very much once again.